Members of House Goliath often wear chains as to remember their past. It has been since the 39th millennium since they were forced to wear them. House Orlock takes the risk in doing so, however, as a forged shipment of promethium was intercepted along the Ash Road. Stripped of their weapons, House Goliath knows that brute strength can win any battle, and no cell will hold them for long. It's coming up next as MGM presents Ashes of Acropolis.
Alright, welcome back to Miniature Game Montage and our 25th battle report of Season 4. This battle will be between House Orlock and House Goliath, and it could potentially determine our Season 4 winner. If House Orlock wins, House Cawdor will be an Ironhead Prospector loss away from claiming the title, as they have the head-to-head tiebreaker. If House Goliath wins, they will force a Week 6 showdown with House Cawdor. Now, the Ironhead aren't out of it, but any loss will drop them out of the competition. Alright, let's take a look at Anarchy of House Orlock. Both wreckers appear to be in recovery since their dust-up with House Cawdor in Episode 17. Forge adds a crack grenade, and Dusty adds a stub gun to back up his plasma weapon. They do experience some advancements. Big John increases his ballistic skill by 1, Juice does the same, Dusty increases his cool. In total, they depart with 8 active fighters and an updated gang rating of 1385. House Goliath purchases furnace plates for their Zerker to give him a little protection. They upgrade Steel Toe's toughness to 6 through an advancement. The Stemmer Scud does the same. Scorch increases his ballistic skill by 1, and they depart with 9 active fighters and a total gang rating of 1510. Today's scenario is Prison Break, and House Goliath will be our attacker. The battlefield will be laid out as a prison with a holding area close to the center of the board. House Goliath will be random D3 plus 2 for their crew and rolled up for 5. House Orlock is random 5, and they will be sentries, with the rest of their crew being reinforcements. For deployment, House Goliath will be confined and placed within 2 inches of each other in their holding cell. House Orlock will be placed anywhere on the battlefield that's not in the holding cell and not within 8 inches of each other. Each gang will be able to select a tactics card to use in this battle. House Orlock will have home turf advantage and will be using the sneak attack rules for sentries. If the alarm is raised, D3 reinforcements may enter in each subsequent end phase. House Goliath has managed to slip in fighting knives but are otherwise unarmed. They may take possession of up to 2 weapons from enemy fighters they take out of action in close combat. These weapons must be a pistol, basic, or close combat weapon. All doors on the battlefield are locked except for the cell door House Goliath has managed to pick open. Whenever a House Goliath fighter takes an enemy fighter out of action in close combat, we'll roll a d6. On a 1 to 4, they'll find nothing, but on a 5+, they will find a code to unlock a door. The objective for House Goliath is to get off the board, and if they can get within 1 inch of a battlefield edge with no enemy fighters within 1 inch, they escape. The game ends when no fighters are left on the battlefield at the end of any turn. House Goliath will need to get 3 fighters off the board to win, otherwise House Orlock takes the victory today. The stage is set, let's go to tableside for turn 1. As always, thank you so much for watching. You can check out our hobby journey here on Facebook, Instagram, or our website, miniaturegamemontage.com, where I will do a write-up of the scenario and give you my thoughts. Thanks again. And turn 1 initiative goes to House Orlock. Activating sentries here, they have to pass a leadership check to do what they want. If not, House Goliath gets to move a fighter for them. And that is what we see on the opening sequence, as House Goliath has punched a hole into the holding cell. Remember that they are only equipped with fighting knives. We did leave their armor intact, and it looks like Scorch is going to take the first action here and use both of his actions to move. The Greenhorn Chip passes his leadership test this time. He's a sentry, so he can activate more than once. He is going to move forward with his first action and spots the hole. He rolls and successfully spots the Goliath fighters. He then raises the alarm and opens fire. The shot cracks in the darkness. It is a miss, but the alarm is raised, and the turn is going to be reset as all fighters now become ready. We now go to turn 2, priority going to House Goliath. As House Goliath prepares for turn 2, Scorch is going to activate first, and he is going to successfully make a charge into Chip. He gets 3 attacks with his fighting knife, hits twice, and then wounds twice on a double 6. AP1 cuts through his flak armor, resulting in 2 damage, and Chip goes out of action. On a 21, Scorch knocks him out cold, rifles his pockets, and finds a keycard. Hearing the sirens, Juice activates and moves twice. We are playing that you can't shoot through the cell doors, as that would just make it a little unfair. House Goliath sends their stemmer Scud forward. One of the Orlock gangers with an auto gun will reposition, using their activation to move twice. Steel Toe, the Goliath leader, elects to move twice. Big John senses an opportunity and passes an initiative check to jump down. He then continues his move and lines up his plasma pistol, dialing it up to the max and targeting Steel Toe. Cover doesn't matter as Big John lands a hit, and Steel Toe uses Nerves of Steel to avoid being pinned, but it is a wound. AP2 cuts through his furnace plates, thus 3 damage, which results in 1 injury die, and Steel Toe goes down with a serious injury. And disaster strikes for House Goliath. 2 cool checks are required and passed. House Goliath then activates one of their gangers, sending him into cover. House Orlock had reinforcements come onto the board, one of them moving here. The bully Thrash activates for House Goliath, and he moves to give Steel Toe an assist. Forge, the Arms Master with his Arc Hammer, moves up to guard a door. The Gunner Specialist Dusty relocates with his Plasma Gun. He elects to fire at Thrash in partial cover and lands a hit twice with rapid fire. The result is 2 wounds, and Unstoppable Behemoth is played for House Goliath. He will avoid being pinned and suffer no damage. The last activation for House Orlock is a pass, which will bring turn 2 to a close. House Goliath, without any ranged weapons, seems to be in a very tight spot right here. They do owe a bottle check as Steel Toe is down with a serious injury. They roll up a 5, plus 1 is 6, which is more than their starting crew, and they do bottle. Steel Toe gets an assist from the bully and will roll over with a flesh wound. A cool test is taken and used by everyone. Turn 3 is on us. We did miss the die roll here, but it does go back to House Goliath. And we see another charge coming in, but he checks up short. This allows Juice to move forward on Orlock's first activation with his combat shotgun. He has Shotgun Savant, so he's able to roll 2d6 for Scatter Shot and pick the highest. These will be Strength 2 hits, rapid fire. Scorch rolls for Nerves of Steel to avoid being pinned, but he does get hit 5 times, Strength 2. The result on a 6 is 1 wound. The armor save does fail, so Scorch takes a wound. The bully Thrash is up next, and he gets hit 3 times, still needing 6s to wound. He avoids any kind of damage. Scorch then uses this opportunity to charge into Juice. He should get 4 attacks here, as he is carrying Chip's stub gun. These are the 3 for the fighting knife. He hits twice. With 1 wound at AP1, Mesh Armor takes it to a 6-up save and is made. We remember the stub gun that he's carrying that he picked up from Chip. He fires that as well and lands a hit, but it fails to wound. Juice makes reaction attacks unarmed. He hits once. He does need 5s to wound at Strength 3, which he gets. That takes him down to 0 wounds after a failed armor save, and it is going to result in a flesh wound. Up next for House Orlock, Reb moves into position short range with his autogun, and he fires but misses. House Goliath then activates Thrash, picks himself up off the floor, and moves behind Scorch. Big John with his plasma pistol dials it up to the max, short range, anything but a 1, he hits. Fighter goes down pinned, easily wounds. Cuts through the armor, does 3 damage, and a serious injury with multiple flesh wounds is the result. House Goliath then picks up Steel Toe. He then moves behind Scorch as well. From up high, Dusty watches, and he decides to aim and fire his plasma gun. Targeting the bully, he lands a hit, lands a wound, and the bully goes out of action, rolling up a 22. Without cold being the result, multiple nerve tests are taken and passed by House Goliath. House Goliath now has 2 fighters down. As they look to activate their Stimmer Scud, he is going to use both of his actions to move, now going away from Forge with his Arc Hammer. House Orlock activates a Ganger, going to move him to the platform elevator and activate it, going down to the bottom level. The rest of the activations remain with House Orlock, as we do have another Ganger repositioning. Forge then activates, puts in his door code to open it up. He will then pass. And turn 3 comes to an end. House Goliath in a lot of trouble. One of the fighters already taken out of action, another down with a serious injury. Will roll back over with a flesh wound, but operating at a toughness of 1. House Goliath does successfully pass their cool checks to remain on the board. Priority rolls go out, and it goes to House Goliath. And House Orlock playing Beatdown, meaning that any unarmed attacks that hit will do an automatic flesh wound. A group activation is called from House Goliath as the Stimmer Scud charges into juice. Armed with just his fighting knife, he manages to hit 4 times. He only needs 2s to wound, getting +1 from backstab. All of them do a wound. Juice wants to see 6s, blocks 1, but 3 damage results in 2 injury dice, 2 flesh wounds, as Juice turns, gets a -1 to his weapon skill and misses twice. Steel Toe activates next as part of this group activation, again charging into Juice, getting the assist. He's going to hit on anything but 1s. He hits 3 times with his fighting knife, and he needs 3s to wound. 2 wounds, and Juice, completely overwhelmed by the House Goliath fighters, can't save them. Injury dice are going to be rolled out. He goes down with a serious injury. Juice rolls a 42, becoming partially deafened, and Steel Toe picks up his combat shotgun and consolidates. The last part of the group activation, Scorch loads Dum Dum rounds into the stub gun he picked up off Chip and fires at Dusty. He hits on a 6. Dusty takes an initiative check and he fails, so he will plummet to the bottom. It is going to do a wound at Strength 4, just needs 3s to wound. Dusty fails his armor save and ends up taking a flesh wound. He then smacks the ground, taking a Strength 3 hit. That also does a wound. Once again, his mesh armor is no good, and it's another flesh wound. Scorch uses his second action to move, as we have a charge coming in from Big John with his Servo Claw and Plasma Pistol. With a weapon skill of 3, a Servo Claw shot hits, as well as the Plasma Pistol. Ammo check is required, which is good. The Goliath Ganger is just on toughness 1, so 2's wound. He needs to see a 6 up on this first roll, but he fails his save. He is able to save the plasma shot. He goes out of action to Big John, rolling up a 53, which will be partially deafened. And with that, House Orlock controls the rest of the activations as they begin moving fighters towards the House Goliath captives. Dusty gets to his feet, turns the plasma gun up, and fires, hitting the Stimmer. Nerves of Steel is passed. Even at Strength 7, however, he's unable to wound. House Orlock continues with Forge moving in with his Arc Hammer, trying not to get too close. An Orlock Ganger with an auto gun will reposition on the bottom floor. The Ganger up top attempts to fire with his autogun and misses, could see the head of the Stimmer, and that's all for turn 4. House Goliath now down 2 fighters. They have to get the remaining 3 off the board to secure a win today. Scorch does have a stub gun in his possession, and Steel Toe now has a combat shotgun in his possession. Steel Toe was also able to secure a door card from Juice. With a cool check good from House Orlock, given to all fighters, the priority goes over to House Orlock, and we see a charge from Forge with his Archhammer going into the Stimmer. He charges into contact to get the extra shot from his stub gun, and he does land a number of hits with his arc hammer, but flubs the wound. This allows the Stimmer to make 3 reaction attacks. He hits twice with his fighting knife, and then he is going to wound twice. Mesh armor save is a 5 up, and AP1 makes it a 6. They're both failed. 2 damage, he gets an injury roll and goes down with a serious injury. And the Arms Master with the arc hammer, that has never failed, lays down on the floor with a serious injury as House Goliath calls for a group activation. Steel Toe first fires his combat shotgun scatter shot, hitting 3 times into Dusty. He gets 1 wound. Dusty fails his armor save and is going to go out of action. Dusty rolls a 63 and is in critical condition as Steel Toe uses his second action to move. The next group activation, Scud takes down the Arms Master, and with a scream, he rolls up a 65, also in critical condition. The Stimmer will use his second action to move as well, as Disaster is striking House Orlock in turn 5. Scorch moves closer to the door, but does not open it. As a shot cracks from an autogun, it does miss. House Orlock has the rest of the activations, moving one of their gangers back to protect the exits. Another ganger with an autogun uses his first action to move. His second is to fire, but the shot misses. Big John is still floating around the board with his plasma pistol, moves up and declares a shot, just getting the Stimmer within 12 inches of his plasma pistol. He rolls a 1, however, just needed 2s, and the shot misses. As we move to the end phase of 5, House Orlock successfully passes a bottle check, and House Goliath will pass a nerve check, spread that around to remain on the board. The priority is going back to House Orlock for turn 6. And Big John knows he has the Stimmer in range, dials that plasma pistol up to the max, and he misses again on anything but 1. The shot echoes through the halls, hitting the wall, as House Goliath activates with another group activation, Scorch using that key card to open the door. Scorch then uses his second action to move in. The second part of the group activation, Steel Toe comes through, points his combat shotgun up at the ganger and fires. He fires his shotgun with salvo, which is rapid fire and knockback. He does land a hit despite the light cover. And with 3 wounds, Mesh Armor Save is going to fail. That is going to be a number of injury dice coming out. He's going to bleed out, going out of action. The result is a 23, which is out cold. And House Goliath using their improvised weapons. The last part of the group activation, we see the Stimmer using both actions to move. The ganger attempts to take a shot with his autogun, but another 1 is rolled and he misses. We then see another ganger take an initiative check to jump down and then continue moving towards the House Goliath fighters. Turn 6 comes to a close, and you can feel the momentum building for House Goliath with some lackluster shooting from House Orlock, but they're not out of the woods just yet. House Orlock does owe a bottle check here, not getting the Rule of Iron as their Arms Masters are off the board. They roll a 6 and bottle. They do have home turf advantage, so rolling another d6 out there, but the result's still a bottle, and House Goliath is going to roll up a cool check. They're going to be just fine. As we move to cool checks for House Orlock, however, a 4 is rolled from Big John. He does not stick around. He flees off the battlefield. The rest of the cool checks are going to be good. With House Goliath winning the priority roll, we see Scorch make a dash for the board edge, part of a group activation, and Steel Toe moves forward with his combat shotgun, elects to fire and lands a hit against the ganger. It is a wound, just needing a 3, the save is failed, and it's an out of action. The fighter will gain Bitter Enmity, and it looks like House Goliath has a pathway off the board. With the last part of the group activation, the Stimmer is going to make his way off the board. And while the approaching ganger gets a shot off at Steel Toe, he lands a hit rapid fire with his autogun. Nerves of Steel is passed and Steel Toe remains standing. There's 1 wound, but the Furnace Plate save is good. House Goliath would win the priority on the next roll, and they would all make their way off the board. And in a crazy turn of events, somehow House Goliath has made their way out of the prison and back to freedom. And this game is really going to sting for House Orlock as they have now been pushed below the cut line. We're going to have the post-game report coming up. And wow, I really don't know what to say in that one. There's just no game quite like Necromunda, and there's no way that this scenario was balanced. Going into it, I felt kind of bad. My son played House Goliath, and I felt bad. I'm like, he really doesn't stand a chance in this one. As soon as the alarm goes off, I'm just going to blast him to death. But my guys could not shoot. They rolled ones, I know 3 or 4 separate occasions with plasma shots. They just could not land those crucial hits against these high toughness Goliath guys. You put any gang in that prison cell that is not high toughness, so not House Goliath or the Slave Ogre, and you are really going to struggle with this scenario. I think it's cool. It's got a really cool fun factor to it, you know, breaking out of prison and things like that. I mean, it sets up really well narratively. I just did not expect this game to kind of flip the way that it did, and it all started from when I charged in Forge with his arc hammer. He had a crack grenade on him. I could have thrown the crack, but I didn't want to risk that missing and just being a waste, so I figured charging in that arc hammer has been so solid the entire campaign, and while it landed 2 hits, again, rolled ones to wound. The Stemmer fights back with 3 attacks unarmed and somehow takes him pretty much out of action, and then you had some missed plasma pistol shots. The next thing you know, House Goliath is making their way off the board. Now House Orlock will get 2 losses. I think this is their 2nd in a row, which is going to put them below the cut line, so for the post-game actions, their champion as well as the specialist, they're going to not make it. Both were critically injured, but their season appears to be over anyway. Now, I mentioned before the battle report that the Prospectors are not out of it. They do have a date with House Escher coming up next, and we'll have to see what happens. If they get a loss from anyone, then their season will be over. House Goliath will play House Cawdor in week 6, and if they are able to take a victory, then House Goliath will control the head-to-head, and they will take the championship this season. Otherwise, House Cawdor would be champion, barring anything happening with the Ironhead Prospectors. It's all exciting to see, really great way to start out 2025 with Necromunda, and once we get this campaign wrapped up, we will turn our attention to a Hive Secundus campaign. I do appreciate you watching and for being here. Supporters Club, your names are on the screen now. I have retooled this a bit for 2025 to reflect more current donations. All that is always optional. Channel memberships, all that stuff. My content will always be free. It's by no means necessary. If you watched the video this far, you've done more than enough to support the channel, so thank you so much. We will see you in the next one. My full write-up on this campaign will be on the website very soon, and I look forward to seeing you soon. Take care.